All right, today we're diving into a topic that a lot of people overcomplicate, and that is bulking and cutting phases. We're actually going to do like a little two-part series with this first being cutting and then bulking in the next one. Because I feel like everyone wants to look lean and muscular, but most people end up stuck somewhere in the middle. Either they're eating too much to lose fat, but not enough to build muscle, and then they end up working hard, but not really changing. And so the truth is, real progress comes from intentionally spending time in these different phases, knowing when to build, when to cut, how to transition between the two of them. And so in this little series, we're going to break down what each of these phases actually means, when you should bulk, when you should cut, how long to stay in each one, what mistakes to avoid, so that way you can stop spinning your wheels and actually see the body changes that you want.
All right, it's gonna be a lot of fun. I'm gonna enjoy this.
Yeah, and what's been going on with you? I know we got Halloween coming up soon.
Yeah, when we're recording this a couple of days before Halloween, so I'm probably one of the few people that's not the most excited about Halloween. I know everyone else is like, "Woo, Halloween! I love it." Whether you like dressing up or whether you're a kid and you're going around candy. The only thing I like is spending time with my daughters, walking them around, and they're getting older, so there's always that in the back of my head: are they going to not want to walk around anymore, or are they going to want to go somewhere else? But this year, they're wanting to walk around the neighborhood, so it's not going to be the same as it was when they were little. I used to pull a little wagon around, and at every house they would hop out and run up there, and it was so cute. But it'll be fun spending time with them.
Yeah, I'm glad you guys are able to still have that because I feel like eventually it gets to that point where Halloween is all just about partying and they're going to want to go and do that type of stuff. So, yeah, I'm glad you're able to soak in those moments and get some good quality time.
What are your thoughts on Halloween? You like it, dislike it, care less?
I don't like, to me it's not a holiday. It just seems dumb to me. Like I get it when you're younger, like yeah, that's all fun, but yeah, after a certain point it's just like what's the point? Like I'm not the person that's gonna dress up. I've never been that person. Um so yeah, like it to me it's just nothing.
Yeah, I hear you. I have a little story to tell because I think this, oh, not I think, I know for sure this kind of changed my outlook on Halloween. Maybe I would be someone that would love to dress up and get into it, but because I remember I used to love it as a little kid, but then there was one Halloween, I can't remember what year, it was maybe like I was 11, 12, 13, somewhere around there. And I had a friend that invited me over to spend the night on Halloween. And of course, I was like, yeah, awesome. We'll have so much fun. And he lived in this really old neighborhood, really nice neighborhood, but it was really old. The houses were very large, very old, a lot of land and stuff like that. And so we went out. His parents were divorced, and so he was staying with his dad. So this was his dad's house, and of course his dad was like, "You guys can go trick or treating by yourself. Whatever. I don't need to walk around." So it was just like me and him, and we were walking around, and it was just kind of, I don't know. It started off, it was fine. Like it was just kind of weird. Maybe it was just because it was just me and him walking around, and like I remember one time this like old lady gave us like an apple, and we were like, apples, we want candy, and the kid was like, let's throw the apple down the street, and we did, and then I felt like super bad about it because I was like, oh, poor old lady gave us an apple. I feel really bad like chunking it down the street. So I guess already it kind of like I was just feeling weird about things, and then he had an older brother, and we got back to the house, and it was already, because it was an older house, it was already kind of creepy, just in general, and like I said, nice house, but just kind of old, and for me it was a little creepy. And we watched Night of the Living Dead, which I'm sure most people laugh at and don't think it's that scary, but for me that night it was super freaky. And I don't know, it's just a combination of everything, and I was just freaked out, and I couldn't handle it, and I was like, I couldn't go to sleep. I was like, I gotta get out of here. I was like crying. I was like, this is
Oh.
the worst thing ever. And he was like, I mean, what do you want me to do? And I was like, get your dad away. I went into his dad's room, woke him up. I was crying. I was like, I want to go home. And his dad was probably like, oh my gosh, dude. So like, my parents came and got me, and for a while after that, like I would have sleepovers, and like I either didn't want to do it, or I would go and I would just like break down. Like I don't know why. It was just kind of like one of those things. I was just like, something's gonna happen or whatever. I don't know what was going through my mind, but it took me a few years to get over that. And and so it's not like I have a fear of Halloween now. I'm just not into it. It's just I don't have like whole fond memories of it, and other than with my girls now. But so I'm not a big fan. Everyone in our neighborhood like goes out of the way. There's like skeletons everywhere. They're like decorating everything, and I'm like, oh man. The other day we had like a lot of wind, and someone had this inflatable eyeball, like the size of like a house. and it was like rolling down the street, and I was like, I would not be upset if that wind just knocked over most of these decorations and they're just all over the place. But yeah, so long story short, not the biggest fan of Halloween.
That's fair. Yeah, I feel like it's more of a holiday for younger kids, which is fine. I feel like I've also like I'm kind of just an outlier in the sense like I've never been into any holidays, like even Christmas or birthdays or like anything. I'm just like whatever, like it's just another day. So I'm sure that doesn't help. But me and my friend actually, the first time we ever played doubles in volleyball was on Halloween last year. So he's like, all right, like in order to celebrate, we're gonna go and play again. I'm like, that's the type of Halloween celebration I can get behind.
Yes, I think that's a great idea. I love that.
Yeah. Um, but yeah, aside from that, have you like do you because of that experience, do you tend to like scary movies or do you kind of stay away from those type of shows?
Oh, 100% out. Like, no, I do not want, I don't even like watching commercials. I see a commercial on TV. I'm like, I don't even watch it. I don't look at it. I don't think about it. I'm like, all that stuff's too creepy to me. Like antique stores, I'm creeped out. Anything, like, I mean, anything that's super old, I do not like, man. So yeah, no, those scary stories, those scary movies, nothing. I don't even want to think about it.
Antique stores, that's hilarious.
It freaks me out. I don't like going into it. There's just something about it. I don't know. I think they're haunted or something.
All right, noted. I know as far as the decorations too, there's I always forget that Halloween is a thing, and then I went into the coffee shop. It was probably over a month ago. Like it was a long time ago, and like everything was decorated. There's like a giant skeleton in the main area. I was like, oh my gosh, what is going on here?
Yeah, they get it out earlier and earlier, and then maybe we'll talk this in another episode. But then people are like, "Oh, Halloween's over. Let's start decorating for Christmas." I'm like, "It's not even Thanksgiving yet. What's going on here?"
Yeah,
We'll see that for another episode. We'll talk about that.
holiday season, baby, it's coming.
Oh man, people have lost their minds.
But going into cuts, so obviously I know you've been in a cut recently, so I think it'd be cool to talk about our experiences going through each of these phases, like starting with the cutting phase. So why don't you walk people through your experience overall, like in the decades that you've been training, and then also kind of what you've been going through now.
Yeah, I would say I was actually thinking about this the other day. I would say the majority of the time I'm usually in like a maintenance mode. And basically what that is kind of like a Goldilocks zone where you're not really gaining weight, you're not really losing weight, or you're not really leaning up too much. Like you're really pretty happy with where you are, and you're just kind of staying there. And a lot of that is just attributed to just consistency to where I've been so consistent with all my workouts. My meals are pretty consistent. Even when I deviate, it's not a lot. I'll have some crazy meals here or there, but get right back on in it and stuff. So even without tracking, I'm always pretty close to where I want to be. This summer was the first time that I really did like a really serious cut where I tracked everything like to the T, and I programmed it out and I looked at the numbers and everything. I just wanted to really get down. Every time before it was like a little cut here or there, like a little bulk here or there. Or I'd gain a few pounds, lose a few pounds, stuff like that. So this is the first time where I said, okay, like where am I? Like I really kind of dove deep into like what is my maintenance? What have I been maintaining the last few months? And then I'm going to take a cut. And so I think I've shared this before, kind of accidentally. It worked out well, but I had planned on taking it down I think I was going to take it down about like 500 calories or so, and that was per day. And I was like, that's going to put me in a pretty good cut. And I tried to do it, and really what I want to do is to set it up for summertime. And so I started this in about April, and I was like, oh, a couple months. I feel like I'm going to have a really nice. I'll really lean down and look really good for summer. And then what had happened is I'd put that in. If you haven't heard this before, I was tracking double the amount of protein bars I was every day. And so not a huge deal, but it was like an extra 200 something calories every day. And so you add that up over 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, it starts adding up. And I was leaning really quickly. I was like, man, like I must have hit like just the sweetest spot in the cutting. And then I noticed that I was like, well, no wonder I'm like down like 750 calories, and it's a huge deal. So, but basically when you're in a cut, what you're trying to do is you're taking in less calories, obviously, than you're expending. And you want to lean up. And the other thing too, what I thought was really cool, and I've thought about this, but I didn't really notice it until I got into the really good cut here, was that a lot of times in the past, I'd want to go in a bulk because I wanted to look bigger. Right? And so as I got more and more lean, I was realizing, hey, I'm not getting any bigger. I wasn't losing any strength, but just because I was getting so leaner, the appearance was I was getting bigger. And it was just because like you could see the muscular definition way better. And so sometimes I think when people are like, oh, I need to bulk up, I want to look bigger. Sometimes they just need to go in a cut. And so you can define those and lean out a little bit. But that's basically what I did. And then I started adding a little more cardio. And really all I did was step it up in steps. I increased some of the steps every day. And so I was at I was trying to get a little, maybe more like 1,000, 2,000 every day. And then on a Saturday morning during my workout, I would do like a HIIT workout. And so basically what that was I was doing something like, 10, 15 minutes, 3 exercises like squats and push-ups and shoulder presses. And sometimes I would do a 4th exercise like some band rows or band pull downs. And I would just go through them in a circuit, right? I would actually went outside because the weather was amazing. And I would blast music and I would just do like 15 to 20 reps of each one, light enough weight to do that, throw it down, go to the next exercise, rest for a minute or two, and then hit it again. And just try to do as many times as I could, like in 10, 15 minutes. So that was the main thing. The main thing was just dropping down my calories below my maintenance level, a significant amount, and then bumping up my steps, so walking a little bit more, and then every once a week or so, hitting a really good cardio session.
Yeah. And so it sounds like you haven't done a ton of like intentional cuts. Like this is one of the kind of like the bigger ones that you've done
This
in
was
your
the one that
training.
I really like was super detailed and I was focused on everything. Another thing too, on the nutrition side, what I did was I basically went all leaner meats. So and I got no like 80-20 ground beef. If I did that, I went to like 93.7. I ate a lot more chicken, not chicken thighs, but like chicken breast, things like that. Was just the fat was a lot lower on my lean protein, and I would still get plenty of fats from those meats, but as well as I have avocado, olive oil, things like that. But that helped out as well. And I feel like myself, I lean up more, and I know everyone's a little bit different when I decrease the fat. So even though I'm definitely not saying fat's bad for you, especially the good type of fat, but for me, it just really helped out to bring that down. It helped me lean out.
Yeah, that's awesome. I feel like for me, I think most of my life I was just in like a constant bulking phase. Once I like, because in the beginning of my journey, I was definitely trying to be the smallest version of myself, and I was just, I had no clue what I was doing at that point. But once I actually got into the gym and got into a good flow and started learning more about nutrition and everything, from there I realized, oh, I'm actually severely underweight, and so I was just like constant state of bulk, 24/7, just trying to eat as much as possible. And a lot of people are like, "Oh, that sounds awesome." No, it was miserable. I hated it. Like at a certain point, probably in the beginning, I was like, "Oh, that's cool," but like after a certain point, you just have to shovel so much food, and then in order to get that many calories, like it's really tough to get that from Whole Foods, and then usually it's a lot easier to eat other stuff, and then it impacts how you feel. So it's just a whole thing. So I did not enjoy that. But now I feel like I kind of cycle through them as I see fit. Not like I don't go through like a ton of intentional like cut and bulks. I'm mostly just kind of hanging at maintenance, I would say, but I did do a cut last year, which I was talking about, and I shared a lot of that experience on the podcast too, and just get down on what I was doing with that. And I feel like now, well, now I guess we're gonna see with my new coach where we go with that. But I feel like now I'm starting to get into those phases where it would make more sense to do kind of more intentional blocks of cuts and bulks.
Yeah, and I think that's the idea, or I would say probably the optimal is to kind of go through phases, right? Not really stay in a cut all your life or stay in a bulk all your life. Or if you, I think a great place to be would just be in your Goldilocks zone, maintenance, if that's what we want to do. But we're also going to talk about sometimes of the year where it might be strategically good to, beneficial, I should say, to go into a cut or to go into a bulk. So we'll talk about that. And we'll definitely, all the things you're talking about bulking, I think are extremely valid. And we'll talk about that on our part two when we talk about bulking specifically.
Yeah. And that's a good point too, and not staying because like that was when I was in my like constant state of bulking. Like that was not I didn't know what I was doing either. Like I definitely should have cycled through it. It probably would have made it a lot more enjoyable. I wouldn't have been so miserable, and I would have gotten a lot better results if I didn't just like stay and like try to shovel as much food as possible. And if I cycled it, we would have seen a lot better results. So that's also why we're going over this.
Yeah, there's definitely a right way and wrong way to do it, right? And then somewhere in between. And also I want to point out too, everyone's journey is a little bit different, right? So determining what you should go into a cut, a bulk, stay in maintenance really depends on your lifestyle and what your goals are and where you're at right now in your journey.
Yeah, exactly. So for starters, we can kind of talk about what cutting actually means. I think the basic is, or we just want to cover what this means because I feel like a lot of people can throw around these terms without really understanding what that means. And so a cut is basically a fat loss phase. The goal is to reduce body fat while keeping as much muscle as possible. You're going to be in a calorie deficit, but you're still going to be strength training. You're still going to be intentional with your training. You're going to be prioritizing protein and making sure that recovery is dialed in.
Yeah, it's going to help you look leaner, right? And overall health probably a little bit as well. And a better use of food. So when you're cutting, your body can actually get better at using the protein and the carbs that you're taking in, fueling the muscle growth with even fewer calories. And then, like I mentioned, more defined muscles, right? As that fat comes off, as you lean up, your muscles start to show more clearly. And that's kind of what I meant by you look bigger because it's just more defined. So you look more toned and sculpted. And a side note too is you get a huge confidence boost. I did feel more confident when I'd look in the mirror or when people would comment like, wow, man, you're like, what are you doing right now? Like you're going through a cut or something. And so seeing the results of your hard work, it can be a huge mental win and just helps you feel more confident in your body.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to make it clear, cutting isn't just for bodybuilders, men, women, athletes, everyday people. Everyone can benefit from having these structured phases. It's how you stop guessing and start making real progress in your journey, like I said, as opposed to kind of staying stuck and spinning your wheels and staying in one area. You have to go through these phases where you have an intentional goal depending on where you're at in your journey, and that's what's really going to make the true change.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about when you should cut. When are the best times? So first of all, let's talk about like comfortable eating levels. Like you want to begin a cut when you feel really comfortable with your calorie intake, right? And believe you can manage eating less without feeling deprived. If you don't have a great relationship with food right now, probably not the best time to go into a cut.
Mm-hmm.
You want to make sure that you've built like a really good, solid foundation of muscle and you want to reveal it. And sometimes you get to the point where like, oh, I think I feel like I'm carrying a little more body fat than I'm comfortable with, or just more than I'd like, and you want to improve health markers or confidence. And a cut can just be a great way to just kind of clean those things up after a long maintenance or even a bulk phase. And we'll talk about that as well. It's a great time to go into a cut is after a bulk phase. So it's almost like hitting a reset button. It helps trim off any extra fat you've picked up along the way. Plus, as you lean out, like we said, your muscles start to pop more. You can actually look more muscular, even when that scale goes down and your weight goes down.
Yeah, and the thing is, where people go wrong is they'll cut too soon or they'll cut for too long. Even if you don't have much muscle yet, cutting makes you look smaller, not leaner. So you end up with what we call skinny fat look because there's not much muscle underneath to reveal. And then if you stay in a deficit forever, energy can tank, workouts can stall, hormones can take a hit, progress can slow down. And so that's when people say, I'm eating so little and still not losing weight. So that being said, most cuts should last maybe like 8 to 16 weeks. Obviously, it's going to depend on you and your where you're at and your experience and everything, and your starting point. But we want to give it long enough time to see change, but also short enough to recover from everything, and so you aren't beating yourself into the ground.
Yeah, I think you make a great point. You really need to have a good foundation of building muscle, right? You don't want to go into it without having established that first. So, like I said, you want to make sure you're in a really good spot before starting a cut. So, some of the signs, like we said, you're eating at maintenance for a while. Other couple things you want to look at is your sleep is solid, your stress is under control. Cutting is it can be stressful for your body and for your mind and for behavioral. So if your life is super stressful or it's out of control, it's probably not the best time as well. You're still going to be working out. You still want to make sure your workouts, your programming is solid. It's going well. You feel really good about that. And then mentally, you've got to be mentally ready to commit for it because it is difficult. It's really difficult. And that mindset piece, I think sometimes is almost as important, maybe more important than the physical stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I think having that foundation is so important. And I think a big part of it is, like you've been saying, is just the food. Like if your calories are so low or you've been trying to lose weight for a while, like it's not the time to go into a structured cut. It's just going to be miserable. And you have nowhere to go. Like you're just getting it down into points where it's just like, even if you go for the appropriate, if you're doing everything right, like if your calories are that low, you're not going to get anywhere. You're going to be miserable.
Yeah. So let's talk about some of the things that talk about some of the great things. You're going to have more confidence. You're going to feel more. Your appearance is going to look better. Your muscles are going to pop out more, like I said. But there are some downsides, and there are some challenges and struggles with this. So when you are cutting, there's way less room to mess around with food. In other words, you just have to be a lot stricter. Tracking needs to be super tight. Those extra little bites that you have. I've been doing that this week, which is I've been having a little bit extra chocolate here or there, a few extra things. I'm like, man, like why do I keep doing that? Like you can't do that. I mean, if you want to be as ripped as possible and get into a really good cut, those like just a taste moments that we have, they all add up. Right. And then more so when you're in a deficit. So and then, like I said, you're probably going to have to add a little bit of cardio, especially when you get closer to the kind of the time period that you want to get to where you want to go. It's not going to be your main like fat loss tool. Again, we've talked about that. It's not a great tool to lose a lot of weight. But if you have not been doing a lot of cardio that's going to raise your heart rate a lot, then it's a good time, and you will burn some fat initially. After a while, your body will get used to it. But it's a good starter. It kind of gives you a little boost there. And you really have to be honest with yourself about how far you actually need to go, right? Getting leaner than you think usually takes more time, more discipline, and more patience than we expect. So you want to set realistic goals. And if you're currently just going all out, high intensity in the gym, training for a specific performance goal, like if you have a competition coming up, you have a race, if you're trying to hit some major PRs, cutting is not going to be a good place for you. It's really going to be difficult to perform your best in all of those that I just mentioned. So, trying to lose that fat and go into that level while also chasing that peak performance usually means that you're going to compromise one or the other.
Yeah. And I think another important thing to note is you often won't achieve everything you want in one cut or one bulk. That's why we cycle through them, because like you'll see some sustainable progress, you'll get to a good place, but then what's next? One, fitness is a never ending journey. I think so. Like there's always more room to grow. And I think that's something that our clients always find as they join. But like you can only cut for so long, you can only bulk for so long. So like you're going to have to go through different phases of that.
Right. And when you're thinking about like when I should do this, when I should transition, one of the things I like to do is kind of use it to your advantage. Obviously like Christmas break, Thanksgiving holidays, Christmas holidays, probably not the best time to go on a cut because you are just going to be miserable while you pass up all those foods that you love to have, right? So you don't want to do it that. You want to pick good times. Think about events, competitions, trips, vacations, things like that, and then back that up a few months. And those are the good things to reach for, right? You get a really good Goldilocks zone, you're in maintenance, and you're like, oh, I have a trip coming up in a couple months. That's a great time to go into a cut. And then you can kind of ease back out of it and go into maintenance or go into bulk after that. But I think having a specific reason, other than I just want to get ripped up, I think that's going to make it a lot more difficult and make it much more challenging. So have kind of a reason why you're wanting to do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's fun to have like it can be good to have that end goal and like have a time frame too. So it's like you're planning backwards. I do that with a lot of my clients now. We kind of like have like his cut and like with Sean, for example, we have his cut and bulk phases like laid out for like the next year, like roughly. Obviously, we're gonna go based on how his body's responding, but like he's like, I have this event I want to get super shredded for. I'm like, all right, cool. So we're working back from there. We're working back from there. So it's fun to kind of plan that out and like have an end goal in mind. Even with another one of my clients, he's like, all right, I really want to bulk up, have this wedding, like I want to get jacked, I want to show up. I'm like, all right, like let's plan backwards from it. So it is fun having those targets and then being able to adjust the programming accordingly and like really being able to just like push and dial in because there's also that end point.
Well, it's like we've talked about a lot of things, having a plan. And I think that's a fantastic way of doing it is saying, here, this is what I want to do, when I want to do it. You back it out and say, here's how we're going to get to that. As opposed to, yeah, I want to be jacked up by the wedding. Okay. The wedding comes, you're not jacked up because you never really had that plan to get there.
I know, and speaking of the plan too, and we've mentioned a lot about this foundation too and building that. Like I think it is so important to have a plan with your overall journey. Like you have this end goal, maybe it's, losing 50, whatever pounds, and you're going to be using like these cut and bulk phases to eventually get there. But I think it's also like you need to incorporate that building that foundation. That's also why like we build out the program the way that we have. Like every single client when they come in, like we don't do anything aside from like build that foundation first to make sure that they are ready to go into whatever phase they need to start seeing results. And so like that's what our first phase is all about building that foundation. Then we can go into like seeing those accelerated results, whether we're starting with a bulk or a cut. And it makes it so much easier when you get into that. Like the results come easier. Like you already have the foundation, you have the best relationship with food, like your metabolism in a good spot. So it is so important to like have that piece structured in as well and not just like immediately go and just like, oh, I need to lose weight, I need to cut or whatever it is. Like really zoom out. It's like what is going to set you up for success long term and making sure that we're doing that.
Great point. When we start with our clients, or if you're listening to this, you're like, I want to get started, you're not worrying about a cut. You're not worrying about bulk. What you're worrying about is I need to be consistent with my workouts. I need to train with weights at least 2 or 3 times a week, and I need to get as much protein as I can possibly get in. That is where we're starting. Then we'll build that foundation and then start worrying about whether we need to cut in bulk.
Yeah. And when you do get into that cutting phase, I think key here is just like slow, steady adjustments. Don't slam straight from a bulk into a steep deficit. Even like you were saying, like just that 250 calorie difference, like you noticeably saw it, and you're someone that's pretty dialed in. So like if you go too steep too soon, you're gonna feel awful. You're gonna lose muscle quickly. So we want to really ease into it and just do slow, steady adjustments. I like with clients, I'm a huge fan of just like a couple hundred calories, like super simple, like so that way you also don't notice you're not super hungry or deprived or anything. Your body's responding well, you're able to maintain strength and everything. And so I feel like just ease into it. Don't Everyone has the desire like, oh, I need to lose weight, like I need to cut hard. No, it's a process. That's why also that structure is important, having the time frame, and so that way you know exactly what you need to do each step of the way each week to get to that end goal. And I think maintenance is the bridge too. It's the phase that teaches you patience and confidence. So that way your progress won't disappear when you stop dieting. So it's good to like stop at maintenance and then go into that deficit if you're coming out of a bulk, for example.
Yeah, and my example of my plan was it was a little steep. I mean, I went pretty hardcore into it, but that's not the best. The best is like you said, 200 calories, and it eases it in. You're not going to miss it as much, a few hundred calories, but it will add up over time. And that's why almost again, like you talked about having a plan. If you're like, oh, next month I need to get ripped up, well, then yeah, you're going to have to go into a deeper deficit, and you're going to have to be pretty restrictive, as opposed to in 6 months, I want to get to this point. We can slowly get to the point where you are feeling good and not restricting yourself very much, but we're leaning out as we go.
Yeah. And so, how to know if you should be in a cutting phase? Basically, one, if you've been in a surplus for a while, if your body fat's climbing, if your clothes are feeling tighter, if you're ready to just tighten things up overall, I think that's a good time to go into a cut. If you're happy with your body composition and your energy solid, if you want kind of a mental break from tracking, maintenance might be perfect as well.
Yeah, you have a specific reason to do it or a time of year. Sometimes just experimenting. Use it as a challenge. Like, hey, I've been bulking for a while. What would it look like if I went to a cut, or vice versa? And so, yeah, I think it's not necessarily what looks best on paper or what other people are doing. It's how does it fit your lifestyle? How does it fit where you are in life right now or this year? All right, then some of the mistakes that people make is being too strict every day, right? Just like I said, throwing in like occasional high calorie day can actually help your metabolism from slowing down, which is common during long calorie deficit, right? So what I mean by that is, for example, if you're trying, every day is a little bit different. So maybe instead of cutting down to like 1,500 calories every day, you have a 1,500 calorie here, maybe you have a 1,700 calorie, maybe you have a 1,400 calorie, then you have like 1,800 calorie. And so it makes, I think our bodies just respond a little bit better to that. Even if someone's just kind of maintained, I think it's good to not have the exact same amount of calories every single day, but kind of fluctuate a little bit where you're a little bit less one day, a little bit more one day. And you can build that around your lifestyle however you want. Not being consistently strict enough. Like eating kind of in deficit. It's like, yeah, like Monday through Thursday, I'm great. Friday, Saturday, I'm way off. But then Sunday, I get back into it. It'll seem like you're in deficit for a while, but then you're like, I'm really not. I'm not doing anything because those days are kind of catching up. Not staying in the phase long enough. I think this is a common mistake for a lot of things. I just think in humans, we want everything right now. And we're like, oh, you know what? I've been in a cut for 2 weeks and I've seen nothing. I'm out, and it's going to take some time. So sometimes you can't lose that weight that that you really feel good about in 4 weeks. It may take you longer.
Oh yeah. Like I don't make adjustments to clients' calories usually for like 2 weeks at a time. It's like we need to give your body enough time to adapt and change. And usually then like it may be even longer. So yeah, 4 weeks, like you're not getting anywhere.
Yeah, I think that's actually a really good rule of thumb. At least a couple weeks. Like when you're wanting to make an adjustment, go for another couple weeks and see what's happening. And a lot of times it readjusts itself, or you're like, okay, yeah, you know what, we do need to make some changes here. All right, the scale. Here's a problem. A lot of people,
Oh,
right? They panic when the scale stalls, right? Maybe you're in a cut and you've lost a couple pounds every week, and you're getting jacked up, excited about it. You wake up one day and you hasn't changed, or maybe you gained a pound or two. So the scale is good data to have, but it's not our identity. And there are a lot of ways that we can, hold water, stress, and sodium, and lack of sleep, and there's just all kinds of things. Like we don't 100% understand our metabolism, so sometimes it's just like it's just frustrating. So we can't always lean on that scale.
that reminds me of our client Adam. Shout out Adam, you're the freaking man. Absolute legend. But because he is in a cutting phase and he has been freaking crushing it. He has been so dialed in. But it seems like almost like very frequently he'll make comments about the scale when in reality his body fat has been dropping like crazy. So like every time we check the new body fat, it's lower. His pictures are looking leaner. So like he is dialed in. Like this cut is going perfectly the way it should, and it's because we can't tie like everything just to the scale, even when you're in a cut or on a bulk.
Yeah, Adam is doing so well. He works so hard, and yeah, he's just absolutely crushing it. But you're right. He looks at that scale sometimes, and I get it. We all do that. We look at it and go, hey, it's not where we want to be, and so we start doubting ourselves. Do I need to be doing something different? And so again, like you said, the 2 weeks, like give it some time and see what happens. Usually, it works itself out.
Mm-hmm.
Another mistake people make is they let kind of fear or ego drive the decisions instead of like strategy. And this is one thing that I was kind of talking to you um, the other day about is it's hard for me sometimes to let go of the cut because maybe like a little bit ego or a little bit, oh my gosh, like what if I can't get back to this spot? Like I start letting all these fears and ridiculous things pop in my mind, and I'm like, I really like the way I look. Well, what if I can't get back to that, or what if I'm not able to do this, or what if people are like, oh, you don't really have that great of a six pack? I'm like, oh, I did, I promise. It's like all this stuff that's like, seriously, dude, that's what you're worried about. So you really need to have that strategy, stick to the strategy, and and it'll all work out the way. And then like you said, cutting too hard or too fast is often a mistake people make.
Yeah. And so with those mistakes, like just the way to fix that is pick one focus for the next 3, 4 months, commit to it fully, track more than just your weight, look at your strength, look at your photos, look at your energy, your clothes, inches, all the things. And then also implement those maintenance phases every few months if you do want to reset, or implement a little refeed to reset. And then again, transition slowly. The best physiques are built by people who master patience. It's not trying to rush and cut super hard, super fast, like you were saying. Give it some time, like set the structure, and just really commit to that process. And so, kind of to wrap things up, basically, cut if you want to drop fat, if you want to improve some health markers, and usually it'll last like 8 to 16 weeks ish, again, depending on where you're at. But the goal isn't to stay shredded year round, it's to know your body well enough to intentionally change it when you want to. So, it is just a good tool that you can implement depending on where you're at in your journey. And if you're not sure which phase you should be in right now or how to actually structure it, that's exactly what we help people with inside our Skool community. We got over 1,000 members all working on their health and fitness together. I post all my guides in there. We run live calls, and you get first access to everything I put out. So you'll get to see how other people are navigating their own fat loss, muscle building phases, which is super motivating and keeps you accountable. So yeah, I'll put that link in the show notes, and we will catch you guys on the next one where we go over bulking.